This world has gotten way too big. I've been building on this world for over 5 years now, and I've never really thought about where anything goes. It takes me over 20 minutes just to get back to my base. And I've realized my world's getting way too big. It's time we start setting some boundaries. In a world that is basically infinite, setting boundaries is almost impossible, unless you build them yourself. So that's what I'm doing. I'm building an observatory on top of this mountain, and inside it, there's gonna be a full map of this entire area. Everywhere that map can see is where I'm allowed to build from now on. No more building thousands of blocks away, no more scattered projects. Everything stays here. Everything stays connected. And if this works, this world is about to feel a whole lot bigger. Okay, so this is the hill I decided to pick out. It's near my base. Well, kind of near my base.
What?
And it's kind of close to Hannah's. You can kind of see her stuff right here. So I think this is like the perfect spot to kind of start filling in our world. But before we can even think about laying down a single block on this mountain, we have to start with a clear cut. I didn't realize how tall these trees grow. Damn, just as bad as a big oak tree. I'm not gonna lie, I think every passive mob ever is up here with me right now. Like, look at this. This is like actually ridiculous. Like, bruh. Not wanting to waste any more time, I went ahead and cleared the rest of the trees. By the end of it, we almost had 2 full shulker boxes of birch logs, which for the handful of custom birch trees I plan on placing around here, that's more than enough. The rest can go here. With the trees gone, it's time for this mountain to take shape. I don't need to completely rebuild it, just reshape it. Shave some parts down and build a new shell over the rest. But to make the cliffside look alive and weathered, we're gonna need a lot of texture. That means a lot of andesite and thousands of dead coral. And to get all that means a lot of mining and a lot of deep sea diving and a ridiculous amount of shulkers. So let's get to work. Yeah, I'm gonna need a lot of this. This should be enough, right? And then we'll grab a few more for other materials. Do I have any more? Okay, back to mining. Having beacons everywhere makes this so much faster. And I walked out of the beacon. I'm gonna see if I can scrape together a shulker box of tuff without even leaving my base. Fortunately, with me semi-excavating my area by hand, a lot of the materials are left over. And boom. Next up on our list was birch leaves. I looked through probably every shulker in my base, and I was starting to lose hope. Dang it. Wait. Okay, we have some, but we do need to get more. For the birch leaves, fortunately, I was able to just fly over to the biome that we're already going to be destroying. And I took some leaves off those trees. I took enough just to fill the shulker box. Okay, so next we gotta just try to find as much grass as we can. Okay, so I was just like wasting my time mining stone, and then I remembered that I have a super smelter and a cobblestone farm. So, see where I'm going with this? I grabbed myself 5 shulker boxes full of cobblestone. Okay, so we're in the smelter. And to turn it on, we hit the switch, that switch, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so it's gonna take a little while. We'll come right back when we're done. And just like that, we only lost a little bit. I haven't used this super smelter in a very long time. I think the most recent updates kind of started to break it. Oh, that's nice.
Sir, I just want to sleep. Please leave me alone.
Next up on our list, we got dirt. I should have some actually up here when I was building the angel. Never mind. Okay, I flew like a couple thousand blocks away from my main building area just to a plains biome so we can safely gather some dirt without ruining the aesthetic of the whole area. So we managed to get just over 3 shulker boxes of dirt. My shovel's about to break. I don't want to chance it. So I'm sure I can find the rest of it back at the base. So we're going to head back there. And as for the moss, that was pretty easy to collect. I have a combination of different moss farms over here. I have a old design that I haven't AFK'd in probably 2 years, but okay, you know what? I thought there was more here, but never mind. I built with moss more than I thought. I think the last big material that is left is acacia leaves, which that I don't think I have at all. So I'll have to go grab those. And then I think everything else is pretty small, and hopefully it's just around the base, but we'll see. So I had to take a break from gathering some resources, so I went ahead and started to terraform the mountain. We started to lay out the rough shape of the mountain, and you can see how much I really dug away from the edges here. But this took a lot longer than I expected, but it was the break I needed from gathering resources. Unfortunately, all that terraforming was a little too much for my little shovel to handle, so we're gonna have to go over to the end and just heal that guy up. With that out of the way, we do still need to go get the acacia leaves and the dead coral. I'm just gonna run over to my base and see how many acacia saplings I can find, and I might just plant a bunch kind of where I am now and just destroy them. Okay, I looked everywhere in my base and all I was able to find was 2. So not a lot to work with here. See, and after locking in for about, I don't know, 15 minutes, we have just over a stack of saplings, which should be more than enough to get me the leaves I need. So I'm just gonna start planting these sporadically around. I'm actually quite glad I decided to do this rather than go and try to find the biome. In the last few projects, I've been using a lot of acacia leaves, and I never replanted any trees in those biomes, so they're kind of just barren wastelands at this point. Plus, bringing the trees to where I was working just made it seem like it was way quicker. I didn't even end up cutting down half of the trees that I planted. I already have way more than I need. I'm just gonna leave these guys over there until I decide that they're in the way from future expansions. I managed to get just under a shulker box worth of acacia leaves, which is plenty for the project that we're doing today. And I also got like half a shulker box of logs, so I don't really use acacia that often, but it'll be nice to have the extra materials to clutter up my base even more with more shulker boxes. With most of the andesite done, there's just one more big thing left. Dead coral. At first, this didn't seem too bad. Just swim down, break a few blocks, and head back up. But the more I did it, the worse it got. Coral takes forever to break, and you can't stay down there very long. Yeah, this is way worse than mining. At this point, it just turned into a grind. Dive down, break coral, come back up, and repeat. Over and over and over again. Eventually, it started to add up. I decided to also grab myself some living coral blocks just so I have some materials for future projects. Unfortunately, I didn't have any spruce strip logs, so I spent the next few minutes doing that. One material I definitely overlooked when it came to gathering was the spruce shelf. I wish there was a faster way to strip logs. This took way too long. After stripping all of those logs, I was completely out. So I spent about half an hour AFKing the wood farm. While I was AFKing, I missed out on 2 zombie horses. This is why we don't go AFK. Lastly was pale oak. I really didn't want to go try to look for the new biome, so I took what saplings I had and placed them around my base. Using a bunch of bone meal, I just grew them in my base and cut them down as I went. I definitely over harvest. I did not need this much at all. Next, I need to get a ton of tulips, but I want to build a chunk loader before we leave so the copper can keep oxidizing. So we got a bucket, get some water, grab ourselves some soul sand, and we hit bedrock. So hopefully this is deep enough. We'll see that. And now we just grab the pearl. Oh wait, hold on, we need kelp. I kind of forgot that they needed to be water sources, but thankfully I had a bunch of kelp hanging around. There we go. Hey, okay, so we should be good to just leave this area now, and we'll make our way over to the flower forest. He's not mad, but I thought he was. Okay, well, that was not my fault. That was not my fault. Moving away from that, we managed to gather over 300 of each tulip, which means we're fully stocked up and we can finally start building our observatory. So let's go gather up all of our shulker boxes and get over to the build site. Okay. Should have room for all of this. Maybe. Let's get this flown over there and we'll come back for the rest. Oh, it's nice to see that all 400 of the cows up here decided to come back. That's just the first half. Let's go get the rest. See, I can't believe I have to make 2 trips to do all this. Sorry, sheep. Okay, so that's all the materials gathered. However, I did not organize any of these, and I feel like that's gonna bite me later, but we'll see. Finally, after what felt like weeks of planning and gathering materials, we can finally start building this thing and see it come to life. Considering we previously did most of the work already, doing this little bit of shaving really wasn't that big. It really didn't take that much time, and it honestly was a good change up from just building, and it allowed me to keep a steady flow. As for the top of the mountain, natural terrain wasn't big enough for the observatory, so I did go ahead and extend it out a little bit, as you can see I'm doing here. I needed it to be big enough just to allow me to have some detailing around it, while still looking somewhat natural. And I think I did a pretty good job doing both, and we managed to burn through a couple stacks of andesite already. This is... glad I got a lot. I'm actually so in love with how this is turning out. We have a path coming in, have the farm. Oh, this view is just so nice. If we want to have the observatory at the top of the mountain, we're going to need a way to get up there. So I turned the crevice that we carved earlier into a winding trail using coarse dirt, packed mud, and gravel to make it feel like it's always been part of the mountain. It's looking pretty good, but I think it's still a little too uniform. Let's throw in some grass paths here, a little bit more here. See, I think it breaks it up just a little bit. Yeah, see, this is looking way better. With the path finished, my original plan was to start planting the tulips, but the more I looked at the hillside, the more it felt out of place. So, before anything else, I reshaped the terrain until it felt like it belonged with the rest of the mountain. Once that was finished, I could finally lay out the flower fields. I built the retaining walls using the same palette as the shepherd's house so the whole area would feel connected. I like to imagine that the shepherds are growing these tulips to have dyes to then dye their sheep, giving the build a little bit of lore. Planting the tulips actually went by way faster than collecting them. Seeing the entire hillside slowly fill up with color made the gathering feel worth it. I really like the idea of building some other flower fields near the shepherd's house just to have more dyes on hand. So if you got another idea for a flower or a crop, leave it in the comments. I might just build it in the next one. To break up all that color, I scattered in a mix of birch leaves and flowering azalea leaves to act as small bushes. They're a small detail, but I think they make the whole field look a lot more natural. I wanted the flower fields to blend into the rest of the area, so I connected them to the existing path with one large field running alongside the path. Lately, I've been watching a lot of Flip's hardcore series, and I really liked the way he plants his farms. It uses fewer crops and it gives the fields a more natural look. I'm still not completely sold on it though, so let me know what you think. Should I leave it like this or fill the whole thing in? And with all those materials finally gathered and the terraforming out of the way, it was time to start the observatory. Everything started with the foundation. Right in the center, I left an open space that will eventually become the map room, the heart of the entire build. To keep the observatory feeling sturdy, I framed the entire structure with massive spruce pillars. I wanted it to look like it's been standing on this mountain for decades. From there, I started wrapping the walls around the first floor using a mix of tough and dead coral. The rough textures worked together really well and helped give the stone that weathered look I was aiming for. I also made this floor a little over 8 blocks tall. I wanted the observatory to stand out against the trees that we'll be planting in a little bit and feel like the centerpiece of the entire area. The pillars still felt a little flat, so I layered in some shelves and some spruce trapdoors to give them more depth. It doesn't seem like much at first, but by the end of the build, I used well over 800 trapdoors. For the ceiling, I wanted to try something completely different. Glowstones have an incredible amount of texture, and using them across the entire ceiling gives the room a much heavier, almost industrial feel. Then, to separate the floors, I switched over to blackstone bricks. The darker palette creates a clean contrast and helps each level feel like its own space. Instead of starting the second floor right at the edge, I pulled the walls back to leave room for a balcony that wraps around the outside of the observatory. For the walls themselves, I switched to birch, mixing in calcite and diorite to brighten up the build and keep the upper floors from looking too heavy. The balcony railing ended up being one of the more unusual parts of the build. To get the trapdoors sitting exactly where I wanted them, I temporarily surrounded the balcony with dirt, and it was completely worth it. As the observatory reached the roof, I wanted a clean transition between the birch walls below and the copper dome above. A band of smooth basalt gave me that separation while adding in the impression of a rocky foundation supporting everything above it. The roof itself was always going to be the focal point of the observatory. I went with a large copper dome because it gives the build a recognizable silhouette from almost anywhere in the valley, making it stand out against the mountain without feeling out of place. No observatory would be complete without a telescope. I wanted it to feel like it was built inside the structure rather than simply sitting on top of it, so I kept its shape simple and let the different materials define the details. With the observatory finished, all that was left was blending it into the landscape. A handful of custom birch trees softened the edges of the build and helped it feel like it had always belonged on the mountain. At this point, there was only one thing left to do before I could finally show you the finished build. Without the map, the observatory just isn't complete, so we're gonna go craft a bunch of item frames and maps. Grabbing ourselves some iron and some redstone gives us all the materials we need to craft some compasses. Okay, so we got the compasses, but I'm actually completely out of all the other materials. So just got to do a little bit of running around first. Thankfully, I built this hogland farm a couple years ago, and it gives me a lot of pork and a lot of leather. So we'll take a stack of that real quick. And while we're in the nether, we might as well go over to my paper farm. Alrighty. Yeah, that should be plenty. We can turn that sugarcane we just collected into paper, and using the compasses we crafted earlier, we can make ourselves some maps and finally start mapping this place out. With the item frames down, the map room is actually really starting to come together. Just the item frames alone take a lot of the lighting away and kind of kills the whole overbearingly bright floor. I put some extra item frames that I had left over up here, up into the observatory top. This is just going to add in a little extra detail once we get the maps filled out for these ones. You'll see. Trust me, it's going to be really cool. Okay, so it's time to go and get all these maps filled out. I'm already confused, hold on. If you're enjoying this series and want to see where this world goes next, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. We're getting closer and closer to 200 subscribers, and every single one helps way more than you know. Now let's head back and finish the observatory. We finally have a build border to really liven up the world. Obviously this isn't very big, and I feel like we'll fill this in pretty quickly, so maybe I'll double the space and go redo all these maps. I'm really happy with how all the interiors worked out. We have little bedrooms for, I guess, each of the workers that would be in the observatory. Little work nooks, a telescope with a lens, another sleeping area. I went and got some maps from the end. Kind of look like space, but the background is a lot lighter than I was hoping for, so it didn't work out as smoothly as I planned, but either way, I think it's a little nice touch. Now, if you've made it this far into the video, I just wanted to say thank you. It means a lot that you've stuck around to watch this project come together. But with that being said, the observatory is now complete, and until next time, keep those lanterns lit.